Behind the roar of the Canadian Grand Prix engines, a legend made an unspoken appearance. Lewis Hamilton, the seven-time world champion, was in fifth place. There was no outburst of emotion or sharp protests on the radio. Just one sentence, calm yet piercing: "We were told that softs were the best option." This simple statement has divided the Formula One world. Was Hamilton too passive? Did Ferrari not give him control? Or, more painfully, did he make the wrong decision to leave Mercedes? Let's discuss it, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. In Montreal, Lewis Hamilton was haunted by his past, not as fond memories, but in real form. George Russell was on pole position. Russell was more than just an old teammate. He was a symbol of the system Hamilton had created and left behind. It was the car that led him to dominance. The strategy born from his racing instincts. A team that once trusted his every word, gesture, and breath. Now, Russell was perfect. Precise. It was as if he had perfected the mold of a legend, inheriting the throne without having to seize it. In the front row stood Andrea Kimi Antonelli, the rookie prodigy. He was still young and quiet, but he was slowly building on the solid foundations of what was once Hamilton's absolute empire. Meanwhile, Hamilton, now at Ferrari, could only watch from afar. Dressed in glorious, though not yet shining red, he sees not only two new generations shining on the stage he once dominated, but also his own reflection drifting away from the center of power he once held. At Mercedes, dissent is part of the culture. Data is analyzed, not covered up. Every vote counts, and every input is tested. At Ferrari, however, dissent is considered insubordination. There is no room for doubt. There is no time to challenge decisions. Only orders exist, absolute, one way, and often disconnected from the reality of what is happening on the track. We were told soft was the best option. It wasn't a complaint. It wasn't a protest. It was a surrender. It was a bitter admission that strategic decisions had been made without him. Without dialogue. Without considering the driver who was actually behind the wheel. At Mercedes, such a thing is almost impossible. But at Ferrari, it's the reality. The results speak for themselves. In Q3, the soft tire strategy backfired. His grip disappeared, his speed vanished, and his chances collapsed. No podium. No fight. There were no cries of frustration over the radio. All that was left was silence, cold, silent, and meaningful. It was the silence of a seven-time world champion who was slowly beginning to feel that this place, with all its heritage and romance, might never truly be ready to listen. Charles Leclerc, the Ferrari icon and Tifosi's hope, failed to make it to the front row once again. Technical reasons were given once again: dirty air, then traffic. But one thing remained untouched: the system. It was rigid and unchanging, demanding perfection from its drivers without offering flexibility or room to adapt. In an atmosphere like this, even a talent like Leclerc seemed lost. Meanwhile, George Russell shone. At the wheel of his Mercedes, he drove with calm precision and confidence, in a system once shaped and perfected by Lewis Hamilton. A striking irony. And Hamilton, he is caught between two worlds. On one side is Mercedes, the legacy he built with blood, sweat, and 7 world titles. On the other, Ferrari, a red promise that has yet to materialize but has consumed all his focus and expectations. Lewis Hamilton did not come to Ferrari simply to drive the car. He came with a vision and experience from Mercedes' golden era. Most importantly, he came with the will to lead. To change the culture. To revolutionize the most legendary yet stubborn team in Formula One. But revolutions need space. They need trust. They also need time. Unfortunately, Ferrari today feels like a sandcastle on the edge of the surf, beautiful but fragile, historic but unstable, and, most depressingly, resistant to change. With rigid internal structures, entrenched egos, and a pride that often overshadows the need for evolution, all of its great potential seems stifled before it can ignite. Hamilton's comments after qualifying in Canada went beyond technical complaints about tire choices or poor pit strategy. They signaled a crisis of trust that is beginning to erode the relationship between driver and team. They were about a 7-time world champion who feels controlled and unheard. It's about a leader who came with a vision and hope, only to find himself running up against the stubborn wall of the past, a wall of tradition, ego, and old systems that refuse to budge. At Mercedes, every element of the car, every strategy, and every micro-decision on the track is designed to support Hamilton's style and instincts. There, he is not just a driver but the center of the team's gravity. At Ferrari, there are still doubts. The question remains, is Hamilton worthy of taking control of this team's direction? The Canadian Grand Prix is more than just a battle of tire strategies. It is a stage for a significant question now echoing throughout the Formula One world. Did Lewis Hamilton make the right decision to leave Mercedes? Or was Ferrari never ready for a leader of his caliber? George Russell didn't just take pole position. He did so with a car, philosophy, and system built and refined by Hamilton. A bitter irony. Meanwhile, teenage Andrea Kimi Antonelli was growing up fast. He was learning in the shadow of the legend's legacy, absorbing the greatness that once defined the Silver Arrows. Meanwhile, Ferrari appeared shaky. Charles Leclerc fell out of contention. Hamilton was trying to adapt, but his direction was still unclear. It was as if the promised revolution had yet to find its footing. This was not the beginning we were promised. This was not a comeback. It felt like the fifth act of a long drama, a cycle of failure that kept repeating itself with an unchanging script. Lewis Hamilton has never explicitly said he regrets leaving Mercedes. There were no bold statements or confessions in front of the cameras. But regret doesn't always come out loud. Sometimes it sneaks in quietly, in long glances toward the old garage where trust and clarity were once the norm. Where strategy was designed for him, not in spite of him. It could be seen in the quiet pause after qualifying when he stood alone in the paddock, staring at the timesheets and forming words that would never be spoken. That's where the frustration settled, not for lack of effort, but for a system that gave him no room to speak. "We were told." The sentence sounded light, technical, almost carefree. But to those who paid attention, it wasn't just a comment about tires. It was a small crack in the emotional wall he'd been trying to maintain. It was a signal that perhaps Ferrari hadn't really listened. Or worse, they weren't ready to listen. If Ferrari continued to treat Lewis Hamilton as an outsider in an ingrained tradition, then not only would the future of the seven-time world champion be at stake, but also the legacy of Ferrari itself. It was a legacy. A history that could be rewritten, or erased before it could begin. Hamilton didn't come to Maranello just to add more wins to his career. He came with one goal, to build something beyond winning. He wanted to instill values and a culture of work to create a winning system, not just a fast car. He wants Ferrari to be more than just a racing team. He wants it to be a symbol of modern dominance. However, no matter how grandiose their intentions, legends need solid footing. They need support. They need a team ready to listen, not just obey. If Ferrari continues to refuse leadership, too busy protecting their egos, traditions, and old pride, then they are rejecting not only change but also a golden era that may never come again. The question now is whether Lewis Hamilton made a mistake by leaving Mercedes. Should he have stayed with the team that raised him? Or did Ferrari just need time to adjust to a new leader with such strong charisma? Is Hamilton paying the price for his decision? Write your opinion below.